relatively new mom, I feel like it's somehow the greatest accomplishment. And it's like, this is what we were born to do, yet it feels like such an accomplishment, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah, look, I totally agree. And I'm happy to, just freestyle. There's nothing I don't feel comfortable talking about. I'll answer anything the best I can and as honestly as possible. So I'm happy to just roll with it.
Awesome. What's your morning routine look like?
Oh, my morning routine at the moment, I literally have I've been trying to train myself to sleep in a little bit longer because I went so long with not being able to sleep in from coaching at early hours in the morning for years and years to then having a baby. And I am a morning person as it is, so I normally rise early. But I've actually just been recently trying to practice letting myself stay in bed a little bit longer now that Scottie's sleeping a tiny little bit longer. Like she's kind of getting a little bit more onto like a human, not a baby, like a person schedule. And so, I've been practicing that. I still typically like to be up before everyone else. That's kind of my thing. I think a lot of mums do say that too. I like to be up, and I've always done that anyway, but I like to have that little bit of time just to like ease into the day, do my things that are kind of like boring mum things, me time, quiet time, where like everybody else is still asleep first thing in the morning. And it's nothing crazy, but it's kind of just like my own check-in because then, when hubby and baby wake up, it's like, let's go tornado. So I do that. And then I have like my sort of set things that I always do. So pretty much for years, I always drink a warm glass of water, like a half a glass of water every single morning. And then I have like this gut drink that I drink. So I always have like my liquid and then I like settle. And then usually I'm going to do one of two things depending on the day, depending on what it looks like. I'm either going to half break the rules and I go straight into work. So into like some critical time sensitive emails and things like that. Or I'm going to like do a run word and stretch depending on what the rest of the day looks like. So if the day is hectic, I'll get straight into work. And then if I've got a little bit more time to do the work later, then I'll get into like a little bit of me time and I'll stretch and slow down before it all starts. And then somewhere in that, I like prep Scottie's breakfast and kind of get everything up ready to go so that it's like I can be on with her.
So because you were breastfeeding for a while. And you're not anymore? Or you are?
I still am.
Oh, yeah. You are? So wow.
Yeah, so she will be 19 months next week, and I have had a very, very just like organic kind of just roll with however it plays out, no expectations. I knew that I wanted to breastfeed into her second year of life just when she's coming in contact with the most like grubby things and to try and boost her through teething and just that immunity. But then obviously I've kind of just tried to listen to her cues along the way. So we only just recently actually, when we hit about that 17, 18-month mark, we dropped another feed. And so now she's just feeding at bedtime. So it's just in the evening and then the rest of the day, which is crazy because you're just like so committed all day long. Like beforehand it was, I couldn't do meetings, I couldn't do anything in the morning because she would feed first thing in the morning. And so when we lost that feed, I was like, oh my God, I'm free. and then it was just lunch and dinner and lunch and like bedtime. And then we lost the midday, like the pre-nap feed. And just as she's kind of gotten a bit older and she's content with her water and her food and things like that. So I still am nursing her, but I definitely have a little bit more flexibility in the majority of the day until bedtime. And then we kind of wind down together.
It's incredible to see that you're still doing it. I lasted 5 months. My little one's only 8 months old. And I'm sure, like, for me, I was like, I just couldn't keep, I didn't have the patience for it.
It is literally, I would say, of all of the parenting things, of all the mothery things, like I knew that I wanted to breastfeed because I'm a real like kind of health nerd. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I wanted to do that. I had no idea how hard it was going to be. Like I thought my greatest struggle was going to be supply because that's what everyone talks about. Like, if you try and train or you have any stress or you do anything, it's going to be a supply issue. But it's not. It's just the logistics of it and like that like it brings so much anxiety in the modern world. I think once upon a time, if you were just like stay-at-home mom, that was your only role, or like if that's your role now, then it's a little bit easier. But if you're like doing things, and like a modern mom is like often juggling a few of those things, like I put my business hat on, athlete hat on, and mom hat on, and then trying to navigate the logistics and like the inconsistencies. She's like, hey, I'm teething, like I want to be on you every 3 seconds. And then to like, no, it's okay. Like you're interrupted and exhausted and, okay, I need to go train. But when I feed her, you get this real kind of like tired slump afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So like I've just fed her, in a competition, then I have to go out onto the comp floor. Like that stuff was like, it was so hard. And there were ups and downs. There were times, there's been times that are like so hard. And like in the early days now, looking back, I'm like, yeah, like we potentially like had issues and we just like, we got through them. Like we just made it work. But it was so hard and it like brings you to tears, and then it gets easier. And now, a year and a half later, now towards the tail end, we're in like a really comfortable space where like she doesn't need it. It's a bonus. And it's a really nice thing for us to have together until she decides that like, it's not something that she needs anymore. But I don't think it ever gets easy, like ever.
So your pregnancy, delivery, postpartum, that's the most challenging thing for you. That was or is? Was.
Yeah.
Or what would you say?
Pregnancy, I was really, really lucky. I'm super grateful. I definitely had a good pregnancy. Like I still had stuff. I was still really tired, and everyone has stuff. It's not easy. You like grow a person and you carry them around, and I had so many things going on in my life at the time, like some tricky things and big changes that I didn't have a chance to really notice too much of that. I had to just kind of carry on. But I definitely think like being an athlete helped me in that regard. Just my knowledge and experience in those kind of things and taking care of myself. My labor was wild. It was, I had a really open mind, which definitely helped me. I sort of said to myself, I don't know how this goes. I've never done it. No matter whose story I read or what anyone says, this is going to be how like my body goes, how Scottie goes. Like, so I'm just going to ride the wave. And it was insane. So I labored for like 3 days. She was stuck. Her chin was in the wrong spot. I had like what should have been like the tail end active labor contractions for like 2 days. And then finally realized I was like, hey, I don't think this is right. Like I'm slowly dying. And then got to the hospital and it kind of all went like upside down. I wanted a natural labor, like drug-free labor. After I'd had my waters had been broken for way too long, they were like, look, you're at a high risk of infection. Her heart rate's now going up. She's not moving because her chin's in the wrong spot and we have to manipulate her. If you don't have an epidural, it's going to end up in a cesarean because we're going to have to get her out fast, and we need to try and relax your body because it had locked on after being on for so long. So I did an epidural. It failed. They tried again. It half failed. I had 3 later and it kind of worked. And then finally after like 56 hours, she comes out and it was good. So that was hectic. I had to have like heavy antibiotics and all this kind of stuff because everything had stretched out. So that was not how I imagined, but I was able to have a natural labor, which I was grateful for, as in like I was able to birth her. Didn't get to the cesarean. I was almost there. I was ready to make that call if I needed to for her safety. But I got one of the things that I was hoping for. So, and she came out healthy. So that was good, but that was wild. And then postpartum, early day, no, look, I think it's pretty good. It's just hard. It's just hard because you just don't know what to expect. People tell you their story and then there's just so many other things. And I think depending on what your life looks like, it's really different. Like depending on what your relationship is like, or, if you're solo or if you have to go back to work, or it's totally different. But I would say my labor was probably the most difficult and slightly traumatic. And then everything else I've been pretty grateful for. But like, yeah, postpartum is not, I don't think anyone would ever use the word easy. Joyful, rewarding, hardest thing you'll ever do.
It's that I searched and I was trying to find your delivery story. I couldn't find it anywhere. I don't know if you've talked about it or you haven't talked about it, or if I missed it maybe.
No, I didn't actually. I kind of planned on doing like a birth story, like YouTube thing or whatever. And I think honestly, I just got busy, and it just wasn't like a massive. It just wasn't a massive priority. And I think for me, like everyone was asking, and I was just trying to focus on what I needed to focus on. And I think, yeah, I'm in like a really like a tricky position, like in socials, you know, like in that world too, because you just got to be so careful with what you put out. People are like really funny and triggered, and you know, I'm an athlete first and foremost, and then you fall into that role of like having an influence on your community.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think the most important thing and the thing that I really want to just pass on is like, it was hectic, she's here, I'm like, let's just do mum mode. So I just never really got around to it. But yeah, I probably should. But that's kind of my story. Yeah, it was wild. I didn't eat for like 2.5 days. I was so exhausted by the time I birthed. I'm like, I remember like pushing her out, looking at this bottle of water in front of me, and I was like, I'm so thirsty. I was like, I need water. And then he's like, she's almost here. And then I push her out. I'm like, get me a drink. And he runs and gets me a drink. And I haven't eaten in like 2.5 days. I scull this water and then projectile vomit all over myself, all over my new baby, because I'm like so exhausted. I'm like, that was the glamour of it.
I also puked all over, like during labor. I kind of forgot about that, actually.
Yeah, you do. A friend of mine said like, oh, I was throwing up from the pain and all this kind of stuff. I'm like, during, I was okay with that. But yeah, afterwards, I was just so exhausted. My body was like, I have nothing more to give.
It's crazy. Right. And I don't know if you did, but I remember I was shaking. Like I just couldn't stop. Like I couldn't just control anything. And it's like, so it's wild. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was hectic. But you're right. Like it's the most natural thing you'll ever do, but it's still like the hardest. And like, it should be like so instinctual. It's like what a woman is kind of like designed to do.
Absolutely.
And somehow still it's like you're never prepared for it.
No, and you know, you go into it, and I went into it thinking, okay, whatever happens. I just want a healthy baby. That's it. And
exactly. Yeah.
It's like, and women that I meet and I know, and they're a little type A, and they're like, okay, well, I'm gonna have this and this and that, and I'm like, it doesn't. Just so you know, it doesn't work that way. It's whatever the baby wants is what happens. You'll see.
Yeah, I made a plan to not have a plan. So I was like, I did enough. Like honestly, I barely even read a book. Like I just listened to some people's stories. I kind of like. Yeah, I guess kind of focused on the things that like I kind of maybe needed to know just to be aware of and be prepared for, and like maybe how to breathe and stuff like that. And then I thought, I'm like, surely my body's just going to know what to do if I just trust it and just roll with it. Like I just sort of tried to trust nature, and that's what I normally do. And I was like, look, my body has done a lot of things very naturally and instinctually since the day I was born. You know, you learn to walk, like crawl and then walk and then eat and do all of the things. So I was like, let's just do this.
Pretty much. So did you rip?
No.
You did? That's amazing. Oh my, lucky you.
I was so lucky. So when they gave me the third time around trying the epidural, it still, I don't know why, but it just wasn't working. So it kind of like half worked. So it gave me enough relief, but it didn't take away the feeling at all. So I could still feel everything. It was kind of like just taking the edge off. But I could still feel, and I just, remembered that whole like push until you feel that ring of fire or whatever everyone talks about. And so I was able to like gauge that and pull back and to stay in tune with it. So, luckily that wasn't a thing.
That's amazing. Good. Congrats to you.
Yeah, because they tell you to push like everything, right? Like just push. Like no wonder it's a thing, because you're just like pushing
pushing your insides out.
Comes out.
Well, I've heard there was a girl who I was very close with for a long time. She said, I just pushed and pushed, and I saw there was a little piece of poop, and she said I was so embarrassed. And the doctor just swiftly flicked it like it's something he does every single day. And she was laughing but mortified. And I like obviously couldn't help but laugh because it's like the doctors, they see everything. So for them
Yeah.
to see some poop, I mean,
Yes, nothing. Yeah, it's absolutely nothing. Yeah, they just, yeah, no, I was like, oh, just, yeah, face away. And I was like, so I labored like on all fours. So I was like facing away and she's there like behind me. So I'm like, look, what if I can't see it? I don't know. I'm just going to pretend it's all good. It's beautiful. And she's just a rainbow sliding out down there.
Okay, last thing about the labor. Did you have a mantra?
A mantra, did you say? No, look, the only thing that I did is it was funny, like when I was pregnant, I bought this bracelet. It was like a birth affirmation bracelet, and it had this little card that came with it, and it said it was something along the lines of like, I was born to do this. My baby was, designed perfectly for me. I've got this, like, this really like just natural type thing. And I literally still have it on to this day. So it's never come off since I was in labor. And I was like, oh, I'll just keep it on to like remind me like I've got this like in parenthood. And yeah, so I just kind of had that bracelet. I just look at it and I just kept thinking like she's made for me. She's in my body. She's my child. Like we're good. We can do this together, and don't overcomplicate it. So that was kind of like the thing I kept coming back to whenever I'd look at it.
And do you have one when you compete?
I have a lot. I think I kind of have like a range of things that I just draw upon depending on what I need, because I think there's not one. Your mood changes, the situation you're in changes, so sometimes you need like a really fire up, like let's go,
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes you just need to like come down a level. So yeah, my hubby bought me these bracelets, these things, and there were 3 separate different ones, and there was like one that was like just breathe, and the other one's like prove them wrong, and then there's one that's like you got this or something, and like you can kind of, the concept is you can kind of like rotate them, but yeah, I think the only thing I really consistently come back to is my choice. So I always just think every time I'm in a difficult situation, I've usually made choices or I've made a conscious choice to be there. And no one has forced me to be there. So I just try and control what I can control. When I go into competition, it's like, look, I chose to be here. Yeah. I chose to come here and compete. I chose to train. I chose to qualify. I chose to be out here doing this tricky workout. So like, let's figure it out, like problem solve.
Yeah, that's a really good, it's your choice. Like, yeah, it's great. It's funny. Like when my husband and I get into it, I'll be like, babe, it's your decision. Like it's your decision to feel that way.
Yeah, like we have a choice for everything. And like, I think sometimes, like, especially as I know even more so now as a mom, I forget that. And I feel like I just kind of have to keep going. And then sometimes I'm like, hey, like this is really hard, or like, and there's some stuff you can't control. But then I'm like, with parenting, I'm like, well, I chose to be a mom. So like, that just comes with what it comes with, right? And you can go back as far, and then you're like, you kind of put it back on yourself, and then realize that you have control too. You have power over making it better. And I'm like, if something is bad, I'm like, okay, well, I have a choice now too. Like I can say no, I can say no, I can say yes, I can say I want something different. Like there's always an alternative. It's just sometimes hard to do it.
Well, to step out and realize you're here. This is your choice.
Yeah, exactly.
How is it with so when you compete and you're such a elite athlete, what is that like, that high, and then like how do you, I guess, finagle those I don't know if it's emotions, but it's like that intensity, I think, is probably what it is. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, from being this elite competitive athlete to mom, and to juggle the...
Yeah, like the change gears, really.
Yeah.
Practice. It definitely it doesn't just come naturally. I think, as soon as you become a mom, you you get a little bit better at it. Like obviously like it's a big shock, and then you kind of like learn some new skills, and you adapt. Like we as humans, we adapt to everything. We adapt to training. When you first go into training, it's really hard, you're out of breath, you're really sore, and then you adapt and you get better, and then you're like forever doing that. So for me, competing and working out and doing all of those things is something that I've done for a really long time. So that's really natural. And look, I don't ever switch off from my daughter. Like, I just don't think you do. I kind of have just accepted the fact that, like, I just don't think you do. And there's times where, like, I've just had to learn what training looks like if she needs to be there, if she needs to be a part of it, like that. And then sometimes I get the luxury of going on training without her, and it's like, it's, you know, smooth and easy, but then still you're like, okay, I got to rush back by this time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think acceptance is key. And then just acceptance of where like your new position is at, and then just do your best. I think the biggest thing for me is not expecting things to look like they once did, and just being okay for it to like be a little bit different. You know, training is not going to be different, not going to be the same, and it can be frustrating because I just want to do this or need to do that or whatever, or I have to stop. And there's definitely times of frustration, but I think as it's gone along, I just realized, look, something is better than nothing. It all adds up. It's good for me. It's good for her. And so I just try and like put my everything into that. But, you know, there's still always a portion of me that I've handed over to my daughter. And I just don't think I ever, like, even when I compete, like, I'm still thinking of her. You know, when I have competed, she's there on the sidelines, you know, so like I'm like, is she okay? Is she hungry? Is she thirsty? Just try and block it off. She's gonna live, she's okay. But yeah, I just don't think for as long as I live, I won't ever not be like mum first.
Yeah,
so.
it's wild, right? How like, because I remember thinking I'm not going to be that crazy mom, and I don't think I'm that crazy mom, but I do, like, you know, it's just this thing that just takes over you. It's crazy.
It's totally crazy in every aspect. It's just, a huge part of it is just like, it's just instincts. I swear, like chemically, on a chemical level, like when your body knows that you have birthed a child, like you change whether you like it or not. Like it's not a conscious choice. And then there's all of the conscious choices that you make, and you care about them, and you grow just so fond of them. You love them so much. You know that you're everything. You think your child is like the greatest human to walk the earth. And so like you kind of like shift into that as well. But I honestly think I'm like, the second I had her, I'm like inside my soul, like that's who I am now. Like it just, whether I like it or not, I have given birth, I've become a mother, you know, my body knows it, and my instincts are driven towards that survival of that child and that growth and that love of that child. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Like it is also like the hardest thing, but it is the most like rewarding thing, and you learn so much along the way. And I know I myself have shifted as a person so much because of it. So, but yeah, it's like you don't have a choice. This is like
you don't.
You're just gonna be a mum now, okay? Like it's just how it is. And you can do other stuff, and you can still be you, but you kind of got to work a little bit harder to like maintain your identity and keep you and find you, and you know, like evolve as you outside of that mum role. And I think that's a real art, and it takes a lot of like conscious practice to stay in tune with that.
Mm-hmm.
And I've definitely lost that along the way, and had to like, you know, refocus and find new tools to like reestablish that. And yeah, I'll probably do that for a long time.
Well, no, it's crazy because Adia and I were actually talking about how she found her independence to be like that wife, that female, but you know, be a mom, and it's really, it's hard to. And it's such a wild thing. It makes you realize how different men and women are, because yes, they can understand, and yes, they can, but they just don't get it. Like how could they? They didn't push a baby out of their vagina. Like there's just no way for them to truly understand. But anyhow, she was saying, and it was so cute, and I was like, I'm definitely stealing that idea, which is that they rented a hotel room just for a day. So they go be intimate, and then, you know, be adults, and then go back, or, you know, pick up the baby or whatever. And it's like duh, it's genius, because it's so hard when you're at home, the toys, all the mom baby things are there, like to
Yeah.
separate wife, female, like each role, because it's really hard to find your independence.
Yeah, I think we definitely like have had a lot of conversations, Matt and I, about like, look, this is how it is. This is what it is. We made like we had a really like good conversation. We're like, look, we don't want to get lost in this. Like, we're parents. We've got to do parent things, but at the end of the day, you know, he said something really amazing to me, because we always talk about how we're like best friends, and then I was like, oh, Scottie's my little best friend. He's like, what about me? And I was like, trust me. I'm like, you're gonna love her more than me. She's your little girl, blah blah. And he goes, at the end of the day, he's like, she's going to go off and she's going to find her soulmate, and she's going to like live this life, and it's going to be me and you. He's like, it's going to be me and you as adults, and she's going to do it. We're going to raise her, and she's going to live this amazing life, and she's going to come back to us when she needs. But it's me and you forever, like till the end.
That's so
And
cute.
so, you know, like we have to work on that and preserve that. And that comes down to like our own individual identity, and then our identity together. And you know, like he's good. Like,
You
dudes,
almost
like you
made
said,
me
like,
cry. That's so sweet.
I know it's like those words like just stuck with me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
you're right. Like he's like, you know, you'll always be my best friend. Like we have to work on this. You know, we're gonna be old together.
Yeah.
And so yeah, like he's good. Like he's just the dude's just like adapt, overcome, they're good. And I'm like all emotional and up and down, and I'm like, I've lost myself, I gotta find myself. And then we go like I have to do all of the things, read the books, listen to the podcast, you know, do all the things that like reground me, and work on me, so that was like good for us. And I found like we needed to find like have conversations like, what do you need, like what makes you feel really good, what makes me feel really good individually, so it makes me feel like Cara and like do my stuff, and then how do we piece that together so then we're good together, because then for one, we're going to set a much better example for our child of what, like he always says to me, like we want to show her what like a good relationship and what love looks like, you know, and all of those things, and what it looks like to like care and love for yourself. And but yeah, it's, you have to change. We're like, look, it's not as, you can't be as spontaneous in every aspect of life. Like you just have to accept where it's at, and then find new ways to make it good, and not mourn what it used to be like too much, you know, and just go like, okay, well, this is like a new challenge. How do we make this fun? Like, what do we do now? And I think the more conversations we have about that, and the more we try like just little things in life to like take whatever little moment it is to be ourselves and to be a couple, like it pays dividends. Like it really does.
It is. It's a whole new world. Like no matter how solid you thought your relationship was, it totally just makes you have to be even more secure with what's happening.
Yeah, 100%. Like
wild.
it takes so much communication, which again is hard because like you said, and I realize more than ever now, is like men and women are different. Like we are so different. And like we go through this like whole hormonal and like just overall shift in our being. And then like you think about the chemistry of a male, like a male can go and like get anyone pregnant every day of the week, and it's like not a big, it's not any more work for them, you know, like that's nature. Like they're driven
their job
to do that. That's their job. Their job in nature was like make babies. And, you know, we can only do it so many times, and it's a big task for us. It's not a one and done. It's like, you know, 10 months and then raise them and all that. So yeah, like trying to figure out like that communication and what each individual person needs is that takes some work, because it's like, hey, I'm talking as a chick and I have all these like needs and blah blah blah, and he's as a dude, and we're trying to find like where that meets in the middle. But yeah, we just come back to the like, all right, we're in this for the long haul, so we can like struggle, or we can like find ways to like compromise and work with each other so that it's good for the long haul.
Exactly. It's always same, like we always go back to, we're on the same team, like we're partners. We should be just, this should be easier helping each other. That's it.
100%. We say the exact same thing. I'm like, if you know, we're having a disagreement or whatever, I'm like, wait a minute. Like, remember, we're on the same team. Like, I'm not out to do anything to like get you. And I'm like, I want you to be good. I want me to be good. I want us to be good. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's that simple. Okay, so obviously it's probably different having I mean, having a little boy versus having a little girl. I'm sure it's slightly different for mom versus dad. For having a little girl, for me, and I'm wondering for you also, do you find yourself thinking, and by the way, this makes me think of the video you just posted of you doing the handstand push-ups and her cheering you on. It is the cutest thing in the entire world. Um, Everything you do, you're setting an example. So are you like I even think this is crazy. I think, should I be changing what I wear a little bit? Like I mean, I'm not old. I just turned 31, but I'm thinking, are we supposed to change what we wear? Like, how does it, like, it's, and it,
I know it's I've actually been thinking about it a lot lately because I always imagined me having boys. I was like, I think just because I'm in like a tomboy type sport, like doing that kind of stuff, and I thought, oh, I'm probably just gonna have all boys. And then we found out we were having a girl, and I was by no means disappointed. I was kind of just like, oh, I imagined having boys. And then when you have whatever you have, you couldn't imagine it being any other way. Like we have a daughter, and I'm like, I think about it sometimes. I'm like, what would I do with a boy right now? Like, do I get him in the kitchen with me? And because I'm kind of old school, right? Like I've grown up with I grew up in a female household, with just my mom and myself, and then my little sister later on, and so everything was very female. There was a lot of female roles, I guess. Like we cooked and we watched like Gilmore Girls, and that was what we did. And so I'm kind of like sometimes stuck in that mindset, and I show her, and I really do feel like the example for her in everything I do. And then I'm like, oh, I wonder what it would be like if we had a son, would it then hand over to Maddie? Like, hey, you take him more. Like, is this a different structure? We have like really different things to offer. Obviously, they learn to be like a boy or a girl or whatever. Yeah. But yeah, like I always think about like, what example am I setting? Like, how do I think about it a lot more in like how like my body language and how I speak and how I respond. And if I get frustrated by things, like if I go, oh, like she copies me, she's just like a little parrot. She copies everything. And I think, whoa, I don't want to respond like that because I don't want her to respond like that. I don't want her to feel frustrated at things. I'd rather her go, oh, that didn't work. How do I fix it? So you look yourself in the mirror really hard with those kind of things. But like, yeah, and I think like Matt and I play really different roles. Like obviously I'm the example as a woman, and I'm trying to show her. For me, I love who I am and I love what I do, and I believe in like I want to show her how to work hard and still be you, but also how to still slow down and be a parent and be a woman and do all those kind of things and try and find balance between those things. I'm forever trying to show her balance. Like I feel bad if I'm on my computer too much. I'm like, she's looking at her mum, on the computer, and then I'm like, well, she needs to see that work is normal too.
Yeah.
And that sometimes you need to play by yourself or do whatever and I work. But yeah, you're forever just like, oh my gosh. And then for Matt, he says to me like he's trying to show her how a man should treat her. Like if that's the path she goes down, like no pressure, you do you, like whatever happens. But if she's in that situation and she's like looking for love or whatever, it's to show how she should be treated, and what is a normal, good, healthy like interaction and love and care and what she deserves. So there's an incredible amount of pressure behind that.
It is, and it's like I think about it and I talk about it with my friends and my husband and stuff, and it's like you don't want your kid to face any you don't want them to go through hardships. You want it to be a smooth, easy, but you think about it. Some of my favorite people, I'm sure some of your favorite people, me, you, have been through tough shit, like hard stuff in life, and that's what creates character. So it's like, how do you create this human that's a good human with character and that's not just, vanilla, and without them going through these crappy moments and tough things?
100%. Yeah, we had that conversation. I'm like, we had humble beginnings, I guess. We've had our different kind of hard in how we were raised and the things that have happened to us. Some, like on my side, quite traumatic, but we're both super grateful because we don't want for much. We by going through those things, we appreciate the small things. Like both of us really, really appreciate small things. We don't want or need much. And so we're really grateful for the having that experience, because we like who we are now, and we're pretty resilient and we cope in life. And we're like, we always have this conversation. We're like, look, we're in a much better position than like our families were. We're like, how do we give her those hard lessons and instill that resiliency without trauma?
Yeah.
And so we're forever like, okay, it comes down to like not giving her those things all the time, like communicating, like, having her work for things, and you kind of have to like fake it, because you don't want them to struggle. But I'm like, well, you need things to be hard, because
Right.
you need to learn how to work for things in life, and then it's not going to do her any favors by handing her anything, because she's just going to get stressed and anxious in life when things aren't handed to her, and I don't want her to struggle. I don't want her to crumble. So yeah, we're trying to find ways to, fake some struggle, make her work hard for things. Do the chores if you want something, you've got to work for it, and tell her no, even though we could say yes.
Right. Well, I'm sure her seeing you, and you're such a figure. Like, you're a strong woman. And I think that having that as like, she might not, and maybe later she'll realize like who you are, and all the things that you've accomplished, and that you have so many, you're a role model to many. So it's like, I'm sure at some, when she's little and into, I don't know, teens, will not realize and really be grateful that she get to work out from you, or she gets to work out with you and learn from you and watch you do things and stuff like this that obviously people would pay to do, or ogle over, and this kind of stuff. So I think that it's really it's good to always include them, and exactly what you're doing. It's like, it just really reinforces that they're an extension of you, and everything you do,
100%.
she'll do.
Yeah, and I think if you're doing what you love and you truly like value and like what you do, which I do, I love being an athlete. I think what I do is great and it makes me really happy. I think that's the best thing that she can see. And that's going to obviously look different for everyone. Like, you could just genuinely, you could be like a, marketing executive and love what you do and go to work and have, and I think as long as they see that, that's the best thing for them, is just to see, that you can do what you love and you can work hard at it, and that's the best example. But yeah, I'm hoping though she's starting to show signs of it now, like at 1.5, she's starting to show signs of understanding what I'm doing, and I can communicate it with her, and it's all very shared now. I have my turn, she has her turn. She wants to be involved in everything that I do. So yeah, now is the time to set the best example, because she is a sponge. She is soaking up absolutely everything, and things that I just don't even realize when I'm not paying attention, that she still is.
Yep.
So yeah, and I obviously love, outside of being a professional athlete, I still think working really hard with some kind of physical activity is very good for everyone, whatever that is, whatever you choose. And I think that children should definitely be witness to that, so that it feels like a normal part of their life.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's something that they can incorporate forever and ever, like a normal thing. And so that's, I guess that's why I kind of get her involved in that too. And also I don't have a choice. Like I made the choice of wanting to be a certain parent, in that I want to work, but I want to be like kind of stay at home mummish, I'm kind of trying to blend the two. And so with that choice means that she's in there with me. If I want to do it, then we have to do it together.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that as they get bigger and they learn and realize, like, I feel like you're at the very beginning of experiencing how much fun it will be, because it will be, if she truly is your best little friend, and it will be a great time, and it will be so much fun to do workouts together, and teach her how to do all those things that either you can teach her, or I don't know, the PE teacher can teach her at school, or I'm sure that it's so cool eventually when she goes to gym class or whatever, and she's doing all these fun crazy things, and everyone's like, oh my god, how can you do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's super cool. Like I think what we do is cool. Like Nat works out too. Like we're doing it all the time, and yeah, I think there's definitely like worse things to be doing. So
No,
she's
it's
having a great
amazing.
time. Plus, she's a little kid. They need to be active. So she's like, oh, well, if you're going to take me to play and jump and climb and stuff every day, then yeah, I'm keen.
With your, how do you juggle or finagle social media, because you have a huge following, with, like, I don't want to say is there pressure, but I do see pressure. Like, not only with you, or not with you specifically, but in general, there's like, especially recently, there's like kind of social media bullying with certain stuff going on, but pressure with, like, for example, I saw someone make a comment on one of your photos where she was barefoot, and the woman was said something stupid like, why is your kid always barefoot, blah blah blah. And it's like, well, if you knew anything about mechanics, you would know that actually they shouldn't be wearing shoes, or if they do, it should just be a thin leather. Like, they shouldn't be wearing, like, and I saw that and I was like, okay, this lady obviously doesn't know anything. But there's clearly trolls everywhere, and you took the time to actually respond to her, which, good on you. So how do you?
Yeah, there is pressure, whether you like it or not. I recently have just been trying to like look at it a little bit differently, and I've been trying to understand my own and other people's triggers and the concept of triggers and where they come from, so that I can be a little bit more compassionate about why people say and do things. There is definitely, when you have a lot of people follow you, people feel the need, like they sort of think they can tell you, like, you have an obligation to set an example and to have an opinion on X, Y, and Z. And I sort of always come back and sort of direct people to the fact that I'm like, I'm a professional athlete. If you're looking to me for advice, or because you think my opinion should hold up somewhere really, really importantly, then you've gone to the wrong place. Like, I'm not claiming to be anything else other than an athlete, and I share snippets of my personal life and of my professional life and things like that. On occasion, I have a lot of opinions that I don't share, for the pure reason that I don't feel like I need to. It's not like the space for it. I primarily share my fitness journey and what that looks like in my family and in my work and all of those kind of things. But yeah, people, I think when it comes, there's a lot of like, now being a mum, there's a lot of mum judgment. Everyone will talk about it. I truly think it comes from a good place, even when people are nasty, in that mums want to do a good job. They want to be a good mum, and it's really, really hard. And we always feel guilty. We always feel like we're falling short in something. Like, there's just, as a mum, you just always feel like that. And so I think in the mum world, people can become triggered because they'll see you're doing something and value that, and maybe I can't, maybe I've struggled, maybe whatever, and they get triggered, and then it becomes an issue. So I try and think of it as not necessarily relating back to me as much as I can, unless, of course, I've said something that's out of line, or maybe I've twisted my words or whatever. And look, that's happened over time as well, where I've just like miscommunicated something or whatever. But I keep a lot of stuff to myself. I have a lot of like opinions and values and stuff like that, and I've just chosen to keep it away because it just opens it up to it just opens it up to that for trolls, because anyone can see it. Anyone can see it, anyone can come in, anyone can judge, they can do whatever, tell you this is wrong, that's wrong. And it just comes from their own set of beliefs or what they're doing or what they're capable of doing right now. But yeah, it's a constant struggle because I didn't set out to be an influencer. I was just Cara, normal person, became a good athlete. People decided to follow along. Then in there I had a kid, and then I started a business and did all this stuff, and people followed. And so they kind of like got invested in it. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh man, everyone can see it. So I just try and keep it more about like the real vibes, what's going on, whatever feels good. And but there's definitely, I don't think that pressure sort of ever goes away, because yeah, you get it. I've been pretty good though, to be honest. Like, people don't attack me a lot. I'm pretty straight up.
But you genuine. Read all the comments and stuff?
Pardon?
You read all the comments, you read
I'll sometimes read, like, depending on what it is, I'll have a look at a handful and sort of scroll through and see some and get the sort of general idea. Usually it'll be somebody else that I know that will see something and will be like, hey, did you see this person did this or whatever? Or yeah, you'll get a random DM or something like that's, low, but it's pretty rare. But yeah, I honestly just think people just get triggered about stuff. It's a real thing. And social media is like always in your face and it's like snapshots of people's lives and then they feel really sensitive about it. Like I get triggered. I get triggered by stuff. There's like some people's, things I get triggered. I'm not the person that takes action on it. I don't comment on people's things, negative things. Like I'll feel it internally. That's where I think it's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's blatantly wrong. It's bullying and it's nasty. But I'll always, if I'm triggered by something, and I've had conversations with Matt where I'm like, man, this person's triggering me hard. This is why. And then he'll be like, yeah, this person triggers me. And we're like, talk about it. I'm like, sweet, I'm going to remove myself from it until I can sort my shit out. But it's like, it's hitting something within me. And it's usually on me. But yeah, I love and hate social media. There's a lot of really like awesome people that follow along and they truly value the stuff that I share and talk about and create a sense of like not feeling alone. Like you say, hey, I'm doing this or feeling this or I'm trying to kick goals here or whatever. And they can either feel a sense of like motivation or inspiration from someone else making it happen or, or like, showing that something is normal or whatever and real. And so for that, it's worth it, I think. Like if a couple of people feel like it helps them, there's pages that I follow that inspire me and educate me and make me feel boosted up and motivated to do stuff. And so like, if I am the person for someone else, then cool. So I think it's worth it for that. But yeah, it's bullshit a lot. It's a lot of the time too, like, and then when you have a kid, you go from like, I was an athlete, just, like this badass athlete. And then it's like, hey, I'm a mum now. Like, that's just how it goes. Like you can unfollow me or whatever. And that happens. Mm-hmm. But like, I'm not going to change it. It's not a bad thing. I'm doing both now. And, so you just, I can't control other people. That's pretty much the end of it. I just try to be like, I can't control other people. It'll frustrate me once in a blue moon. And then the rest of it, I'm just like, it's not worth it.
Yeah, it's a lot of energy, I think, sometimes.
It totally can be, yeah. It can be way, way too much energy. And you can get really hung up on it because as an athlete, especially, like it becomes a part of your business. Like I make money, I pay my bills, I feed my family from being an athlete and from stuff I do. So like it still has a heavy weight in our life. And I think, people forget that and don't understand that. So I am really genuine in how I do that. And try and just make the most and make it a positive thing. And then I can look myself in the mirror at the end of the day. So at the end, that's all that matters. If I can, what other people do and say, like, that's on them.
Well, and you're really good at, because I think that you're right. When you say people are generally good, like they're coming from a good place. But honestly, I don't know, because it's a wild, it's a wild world, and I don't always like. I don't know. Sometimes people are just nasty.
Yeah, I think there are some people who are like they literally go looking for trouble.
Yeah.
And that I can't control. But I do. It helps me to deal with it, to try and find compassion in why people might be like that. So I think I go all the way back to like I visualize some mum, like another mum is like targeted me. They've, say you shouldn't do that or whatever or blah, blah, blah. And they've been triggered. I try and just picture them like, hey, maybe they haven't had a moment for themselves. Maybe they're really struggling. Maybe something I've talked about is something sensitive and, they haven't eaten properly in 2 weeks and they're tired or whatever. And they're just I try and visualize that because that makes me feel better otherwise I just lose faith in human race and like in humanity. And there have been times of that where I've like said to Matt, like, I can't see the good in anyone anymore because it's everywhere. Like people are constantly in my face and I'm just trying to like do good. I'm trying to live good days. And there are moments of that. I'm in a little bit of a better phase of it now where I'm like, I can't drown in other people's toxicity now. It just, I can't.
Yeah.
And so they're not going to change. So I just need to find a better way to, like, I need to gain better perspective of it and a better way to deal with it, because otherwise I'm going to be the person that suffers from other people's stuff.
Well, when you, I would have, I don't know, but when you were pregnant, that was probably the worst because you're
Yes.
working out and people don't understand your capacity. Like, you know, you're creating a human. You're not going to do something to try to like hurt that human. It's very, very simple.
Yeah, still to this day, I'm like, I'm not trying to do anything that's going to kill my kid. Like, I love her. I'm like, I want her to be good.
It's wild, though, how people just...
Oh, again, triggering. I truly think that's what it comes down to. But yeah, pregnancy was definitely the worst in that regard, because it was like, you shouldn't be doing that, blah, blah, blah. You're going to kill your baby. They're going to come out like this and that, like some really, really nasty stuff. And I'm like, they see like 1%. I'm like, you don't see the days where I've gone in to do exercise, but I've coached the morning classes and I've rolled out a thing on the floor and I've fallen asleep for 2 hours in the office on the floor instead. Like, you don't see that. Or, like all the times where I haven't done things and I've just been like tired and pregnant, or when I've stopped, and again, how different that looks. And then I'm like, guys, like, I'm a professional athlete. So like what you see me maybe doing is still 50% of what I normally do, and it would be a really great shock to my system to do anything different. For
it'd
me
be
to
worse
eliminate,
if you stopped, I'm sure it'd be worse for, yeah.
Well, even like I've heard doctors say, like, if someone smokes, like it can, because their body knows that if you like cut straight away, like even that can be detrimental. So, and that's not healthy. So yeah, I loved how I did it, and I had no expectations of myself. Hand on my heart, never was like, I need to keep strength, I need to stay fit, I need to do this. Like, I just wanted to feel good. I was like, I want to enjoy being pregnant. I've been an athlete. I've been working hard for a really long time. So it was a good time for me to actually have a break. And I was like, I just want a healthy baby. I just want a really healthy baby. I don't want to have aches and pains all day and then get stressed and struggle, because that's going to go through to the baby. Mm-hmm. And that's all I ever looked at. And to the point where at the end of my pregnancy, I walked into the gym one day, and at that point I was just doing like accessory work. I was like sitting on the floor with some dumbbells and, like some little deadlifts with dumbbells or kettlebells, so slow. And I walked in, I did like 3 Romanian deadlifts with a kettlebell, and I put them down. I looked at Matt and I was like, I'm done. I was like, this isn't serving me anymore. It feels like it's not giving back. I feel like it's hurting me. I'm exhausted. And then my baby came a week later. So like that in itself was like, my body went, hey, it's time. I listened, I stopped, I did a couple of walks, and I was ready to go. So yeah, I love how I did it. So, but yeah, definitely people are like, I can't believe you're doing that. I can't believe you're doing that. Like, oh yeah.
But I think the other part of that is, and I think that it's so important for women and men to know that our bodies are incredible. So it's whatever you were doing, you don't just stop. And I don't think that people really understand, if they weren't into like, even to just like be like a very regular gym goer, let alone a professional athlete, you wouldn't just stop going to the gym. So why would you stop?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Well, I mean, and the thing is too, like when people were criticizing me on exercising or doing whatever, I'm like, I would look at some other people and go like, I can't believe you're eating like that or putting that into your body when you're growing a human. But I'm not allowed to say that,
That's
like I can't. I'm attacking somebody now. Like, you can't say that. Whereas in my mind, I'm like, there is no way I would put that shit into my body right now and have that be what my baby is like used to. I'm like, I don't want her growing on cake. Like, I'm going to put the right fuel into my body to like grow a healthy baby. But like, if I said it, if it was the reverse, like,
I don't get it. I feel like this is something that I'm always like, I feel like my husband at this point is like, babe, I know. And I'm like, but I don't understand. Because, and there's so many women who, oh, this is my time to just get fat and do nothing and eat. And I'm like, no, this is when you should be taking care of your body the most. Like, this is when you
the
should.
total opposite. Yep. They say like how you eat and how you are now, put aside obviously any illness or like anything that anyone has, like any complications that kind of like set you back or whatever, but you know, like that year or that 10 months or whatever that they're growing, and then the year after, like the most precious, like sets them up for like how their biology is, like how they interact, how their metabolism is long term, like how they function. And for me, I was like, this is go time. Like, I'm going to grow this girl once and I can stuff that up. And I was like, and then, you know, on the flip side of that, I'm like, that, like, for that, I was like, she is more important than I am. From that minute that, like, she was made, like, she is now more important than I am. So no matter how I feel, what I crave, what I want, whatever, it's bullshit, because I know better and I know what's good for her, and that's all that matters. And on the flip side, pregnancy is hard. You sit around and do nothing and you eat like shit, and it only makes it harder. You become sore, tight, you feel gross, your digestion is already struggling, like, or whatever, or you've got reflux, or like I had terrible reflux from day one to literally until she was born. The second she came out, no reflux. But for my entire 10 months, my throat just burnt, my eyes would water, it hurt so bad. And I'm like, if I eat crappy food,
it'd be even worse.
Whatever, I just feel worse.
Yeah.
I'm like, why struggle anymore? Like, it's already hard, you know, like I've already got this big thing in front of me, and, you know, I'm kind of tired or whatever. So like for her and me, like, it's the most important time to take care of yourself. But I think that comes from obviously bigger issues. That comes from like a lot of restriction and a lot of stress leading into pregnancy. The fact that a lot of women feel like they need to, like, oh my God, I need to, you know, like, so I just felt like I could take the pressure off my life and, you know, not be a competitive athlete, but it was still really important to like nourish myself and care for myself and care for her. But yeah, I think there just probably needs to be a little bit more information and a little bit more encouragement to kind of like push to change that. Because yeah, back in the day, it was like, sweet, and get fat, no one will notice, I do whatever. It's like, it's not about weight. It's not about that. It's about quality and like what's happening to your body and their body. And yeah, I think we just need to like shift that a little bit more and not make it be about like size and numbers and things, but more about health.
And you make it like, I really wonder how you can make it about being healthy. Because anytime that I, like for me, when I was speaking with, I don't know, whoever, or people would ask me about it, because I was doing like, there was something that was released in Self magazine, and they wanted to do like a little thing on me. So I was like, okay. And so anyhow, they were like, well, give us like a trick or whatever. And I was 8 months pregnant, and I did handstand push-ups, and I didn't have a problem. Like, no problem. I did like 10 of them, and I sent them the little clip, and they did whatever. And I remember people being like, well, this is for vanity. And I'm like, no, like I gained like 35 pounds. I'm not very big. So 35 pounds for me is a lot. And it has nothing to do with vanity. Like I can still move and do, and everything's the same. I just happen to have this human in me. Like,
yeah,
if you take care of yourself, it shouldn't be any different. Like, it's not about vanity. It's not about weight. It's just take care of your body and the human you're growing.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's just, yeah, and it's just shifting that mindset of what we know. But yeah, you're totally right. I 100% agree. It's not about that. It's just do what you do, what feels good, what feels right. Like, and again, that's different for everyone.
Yeah, and I hope
like,
that I wish there was a way to shift it so it's not, because when you say, oh, it's for health, people automatically assume vanity. And it's like, no.
Yeah.
So anyhow, something to figure out.
I think there's just so many things out there that are conditioning people to think that they are less. So there's like a constant element of, you know, and take social media, constant element of comparison and of feeling less and self-judgment, and then judging externally,
Mm-hmm.
that it then just filters into every aspect. And when you do something that is the greatest shift to your body, it's easy to fall into that trap and to think that it's about that.
Yeah.
And I think that's where things need to change a little bit. And you know, even at the moment, there's like a massive movement in, you know, like plus size categories and that inclusion and what that looks like. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck what size you are. I don't care. But like, are you healthy? Like, do you take care of yourself? You know, like, forget if you're pregnant and you know, gain, I don't know, 50 pounds or 15 pounds or like whatever. Like, who cares? Forget it. But like, are you good? Like, are you good? Is baby good? Like, or outside of pregnancy, like whatever. Like, are you good? Like, stop focusing on the aesthetics, like what that looks like, what that should look like, and just focus on like those markers of health.
Well, and that's actually something that I wanted to ask you about, and I wasn't sure because obviously you're in Australia and I'm in New York, and things are slightly different. Where there's a lot of the body image inclusion here, and I get that self acceptance is a thing, but health is a thing, and so there's so much. And I'm not. I mean, whatever people do, you do what works for you, but I really can't get behind the we'll just accept you, accept the, you know, this overweight, whatever. And it's like, that's not healthy. That's not good for you. It's not good for your baby, for pregnancy. Try after pregnancy, when you're trying to chase around this little munchkin or your body's ripped in half, like see how good that feels when you're carrying all this extra weight that's completely unnecessary. Like nothing about it's healthy. So it really I wish I could understand the logistics behind this marketing of plus size, whatever. And that's fine, but the health component of it, why isn't anyone talking about that?
I think it's people, a lot of people, like through socials and through marketing, they're going for like the easy way. So we've been so far on one side. We created this, like, I think back to when I was a teenager, you know, like the ideal woman. Like, remember all the modeling shots are like collarbones out, like super skinny, like this, the more you can make yourself look skinny in a photo, the better.
Right.
So we went from so far one side, and now, you know, it's created this really negative space. And so then what we've done is shifted so far to the other side. And then people within social media have felt this pressure and this obligation to show acceptance, which, look, acceptance is good. And I think that where I come from is that I don't think anyone of any size should ever feel shame, judgment, hate, any of those things. No one should ever be made like, if you're little, big, medium, tall, short, don't care what color, anything. No one should ever feel less than anybody else or wrong, right, whatever. And I would never put that on anyone. But then I always, as a massive health advocate, I come back to, what does that health, like, how does that look, not in the way of size, but as a picture of like what you're eating and how your hormones are and all of those kind of things I find so important. And I feel this like sense of like, I just need to help people understand like that they need to focus on themselves and to make these changes and to try and focus on that rather than anything else. I don't think just getting plus size models in your campaign of your activewear is the answer. You know,
right.
It's a start in showing that, hey, there's no judgment here. This is for everyone, and we're showing inclusion. But then we need to have a look at like, okay, this is for health. You know, this is for health. So like, if you're and that goes for lots of different sizes. Like, you can be unhealthy at any size. But we do know that at a particular point, like when we are carrying that much excess weight, there are massive health issues with that. And it can be like, what's the chicken and what's the egg? You know what I mean? Like, there can be something underlying that can create that extra weight, can add that extra weight, or it can be the other way around. But I think there needs to just be more focus and like strip back down and see the good intentions. Like, people need good intentions of, you know, like, we are focusing on health. Like, how do we make people, like humanity, and how do we make women like feel and be healthy and function well, not have massive hormonal struggles with everything, have bad periods, infertility, like all these crazy things, holding excess weight because of whatever, and focusing more on recalibrating and finding that balance within ourselves. And I think unfortunately marketing and social media, they just grab a hold of something and it's always just damage control. And often it's not even with good intentions. And it's the people like myself right now, I have great intentions. Like I want people to genuinely feel good, and I feel distressed when people don't. Like I want them to feel good. But then the people that are in the public eye that have, 1 million or 2 million followers that are doing that, they're not doing it with good intentions. They're doing it as damage control so that they look like they're accepting.
Right.
But really, it comes back to more of like, how are they benefiting from it?
Right.
And the people who don't care about benefiting from it, like if I were to talk about this stuff just openly and put something up on social media, attacked. You just get fully attacked. I'm like, no, man, I don't come from there. Like I come from the good place, but people don't want to see it. It's easier to go, I can be me and I'm good, I'm accepted, I don't need to change. I don't need to do all the hard work to be healthy, because it's hard work. It's hard work in this modern world. Like our food is full of crap. There's crap everywhere, our cosmetics, our everything, and it's very easy to be unhealthy. Like it is. We've created this world that it's really easy to be unhealthy, and it's hard to look for those.
It's a lot more work. It's time consuming. It's more energy to do healthy options.
Yeah, and it's easier, like say when you're pregnant, like, it's easy to just fall into like, I'm tired or whatever, and I go for these options. It's hard work to look at the opposite way. But with the hard work, you do reap the rewards. Like you live great days, you benefit personally. And, I just hope that people take a moment to try and find that, because you can feel so empowered by having control of your own health and making those better choices. And I think that's where the focus needs to be. I don't know how to do that though. I don't know where to start.
Same.
I don't. I don't know. So I'm like, look, I'm just going to stay out of it. I'm going to do my good stuff on a small scale with people around me in my local space, and focus on me and my child and people around, and anyone who wants to know, wants to ask me for help, I'll be there. But otherwise it's just I guess I don't have enough time and energy to, and it's scary. It's scary too, to try and put that message out there, because you'll get pushed down a lot. There's a lot of amazing people, a lot of amazing women who stand up and speak for that and try and focus on that, and they get attacked all the time. And I'm like, I just don't know if I have that in me to take that right now. Maybe one day.
No, it's true. It's because people don't, it might be a misinterpretation. It might be the way that it's projected. But you're absolutely right with it. It's tough. It's hard. It's a lot of shove back.
Yeah. And like I've done it all on my own personal journey. Like I'm human too, and there's a lot of stuff that I have to work on all the time to live healthier days, and have gone through different phases of things and have had to work on it. And it's not easy, but I know how important it is, and I know how good it can feel. And I think, I hope that people can find that a little bit more. And again, it just comes back to that people have to be ready, and they have to sort of be open to change and be open to accepting that.
Yeah.
But social media and marketing is just always, it's a quick look, it's all about looking good, looking like it's the right message, right, whether it is or not.
Yeah. No, shiny things. That's it.
Yeah.
So then you have, and I don't know, and you could give a little more detail on your Ultra Human. What's up with that?
Yeah, so I started working with them. They reached out to me quite a while back, actually, and they've put a platform together that has a whole heap of different kinds of training programs with different people from different fields. So you can do yoga, meditation, you can do running programs, you can do whatever. My specific field within that is that I put something together that was for entry-level people, not sort of targeted, but not specifically limited to women who maybe have kids, who may be starting out, looking to enter and make training with minimal knowledge, minimal time, make it achievable and make it consistent. So yeah, that's pretty much what that is for me. So it's super basic, a few days a week. There's a few extra little tips and tricks in there and some recovery days. You can take what you want and leave it. And I guide the entire program. So I'm there like doing the workout with them and talking through it and yeah, just feeling like they have a little bit of me in there, in the room with them. Yeah, for anyone that's struggling and which is something like I honestly didn't think I would do because I see again on social media a lot of people who they just put some random stuff together and I don't know, put some tight pants on and be like, get a booty like me. And I'm like, hey man, just live good days. Like I'm just trying to show you like how to make exercise normal. It's super basic. It's definitely not as sexy, but yeah, that's sort of like that's me, I guess. So yeah, I'm super excited about it.
How long are the workouts, or different variations, or generally how long?
Yeah, they're different each day. You could look at about 30 minutes you could be on for, like, not necessarily always working for 30 minutes. Some are longer, some are shorter, some have rest, some don't have rest. It's like an 8-week program and it kind of builds up along the way. But I've tried to keep everything super simple so that people can work to their own pace. So thinking more of like AMRAPs or a certain amount in a particular time frame rather than having a set amount of work, so that if one person can only do 3 knee push-ups in the minute, then that's what they can do and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And then somebody can do 23, then that's what they can do and that's good too.
Yeah.
So that there's no, I didn't want anyone to ever feel any sense of pressure. It's like, hey, you can work hard, but I want you to work at your hard. And I want you to have a little bit of like more empowerment of showing up and doing and trying rather than feeling pressure to achieve something in particular. It's more about the act of being there and learning to move along the way and taking that time. So, so it changes a little bit each day, but that's sort of the basic structure of it.
To create a habit for them.
Yeah, and then there's a couple of days in there where there's like an option to go and do something like get a friend and go for a run, and you can do some like 200 meters on, 200 meters
nice.
off, like just really relax, like you can take it or leave it depending on where you are and what you've got and what makes you feel good that week. From working in a gym, my message has always been like exercise is already hard. Making time for it is already hard. And it's just to try and make it as natural as possible, not forced, not stressful, not out of guilt, not out of anything else other than that it's good for you. Take a little moment of time and then just gradually try and make it a habit, make the part of your life.
Yeah. And you also, it was recently, this year, you launched Active Eyewear?
Yeah, so we launched...
it was this year.
COVID is like, it was this year. It was, we launched in the middle of a pandemic. How can I forget that? We had to make a call. We'd been building out this company for like 18 months, and then we had to make a call where like, March came around, everyone goes into lockdown, and we're like, oh my gosh, like, what do we do? Do we go ahead and we're like, let's look at the positives of this. Let's look at the opportunity, and we've come this far, and let's go. Like, let's stick together and let's go. So, yeah, we went for that. It was somewhere first quarter, maybe mid. I think we're like 5 or 6 months in. I can't even remember now. So we launched that and just roll with it. So I've been just adapting to the business owner side of things and being on that side. Luckily, I've got a good team of people who are smarter than me to help educate me and guide me along the process. But it's learning every day.
And is there anything else you're working on? I mean, you're juggling a lot, but anything else you want to share? Because we have been chatting for a while, and I'm sure you have tons of things to do. Your day's just starting.
Oh, you know what? We're gonna get some Santa photos soon. So that's pretty much it. To be honest, I maxed myself out a lot leading into competition, leading into the CrossFit Games, training multiple times a day, and a whole heap of things. And Matt and I reassessed our life, and COVID made us do that too. And we went like, how do we get the most out of these days? Because, there's only so many of them in the end. And we sold our house. We put our house on the market. We sold it in 2 days.
Congrats.
And
holy crap.
We were like, we need to go. So we just moved to the beach about 2.5, maybe 3 weeks ago.
Congrats. Wow, that's amazing.
Yep, and we moved closer to active eyewear so that I can have more purposeful time, and be more in that and have it be easier on the family, and then be around the beach so that we have better quality time. It's like better focused everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But my goal is to just train, do active. I've got a few like the little side projects like the Ultrahuman and stuff that I can fit in that makes me feel really good and stuff that I like to add value. And then, just focus on our business and focus on our family and setting up a new home and things like that. So I'm trying to consolidate and tidy things up so that when one day I'm not an athlete anymore, I've got business and everything's kind of like settled, and I can, maybe have another kid and just be mum mode. That's the goal.
The ultimate goal. I mean, you're always going to be an athlete, but maybe not a professional one.
Yeah, exactly. Not my main thing. I think by the time when I finally if we decide to have a second kid, then I don't want to be competing. That would be like one too many things that I think would then take away from them. It would take away from Scottie and take away from that, and it would be too much of a stress on my body and everything. So I'll always work out pretty hard, I think, but just not as my job.
Now that you're 18 months postpartum, are you back to your same strength or more, or?
Yeah, like some stuff is stronger, some stuff is kind of level. I'm definitely probably back to normal. It just depends on then consistency and training, because kids change stuff and sometimes your day gets, flipped upside down. So like in the games, I PR'd my front squat, which I thought would never happen. That took me a really long time to build back up, especially breastfeeding, because it just pulls every bit of everything out of you into your child. And yes, I'd say I'm pretty much there, and then now just making progress on my weaknesses again. But it took quite a while to get back to that level at a good pace, at a natural pace, without compromising anything else.
Mm-hmm.
If I kind of pulled a lot of other things away, I could have maybe been there quicker, but I wasn't willing to do that. So I think I've done it at a really good pace, and I'm happy with where I'm at now. And I'm just trying to find a balance now to train really hard, but to enjoy myself a lot more.
Okay, last question. And it has to do with your PR. What are because I think that sometimes, like a lot of my, people that follow me or that are watching this, they may or may not know you, because I have a whole slew of midwives to all different types of women that come on. So just so they can understand what kind of strength you're pushing, what is your back squat and then your front squat?
Oh, so you know what? I'm not going to know it in pounds. I'd have to calculate that. So my back squat is 150 kilos. So
three.
I've got my little calculation here. So hang on, pound. That would be 330 pounds. Would be my back squat. I hit that so that was my equal PR. Now I don't focus on strength because I'm already quite strong. There's other aspects I really needed to fix after having a baby. So I hit that probably somewhere earlier in the year, maybe 10 months, 11. Yeah, maybe a year postpartum. Probably took me a full year.
Yeah,
I think it probably took me a full year. And then I was able to then PR, I PR'd my front squat, which was 293 pounds. That was in the game. So that was May, July.
4 months.
Pardon?
Was it how many?
No, I don't. Yeah, so that was in September, May, June, July, August, September. So 16 months postpartum. I hit a PR. In a competition mode. So it takes time, but probably about a year. I'd say it takes at least a year to be kind of where you were, depending on your time and resources and commitment to that aspect, keeping in mind that it's my job. For a lot of people, It's not their job. So unless you're going to dedicate full time, you would, a lot of women have to go back to work. So that's my going back to work. So keeping that in mind, I definitely think you can get back to a good place at 12 months. Obviously you kind of hit certain checkpoints that are a little bit better as you go. And depending on your labor too, like depending on your pelvic floor and your ab separation and like all those kind of things are a huge factor. What time you're able to have to dedicate to your nutrition and, you know, so many things.
And just each woman as an individual, everyone's different.
Yeah, totally. We're so different. I didn't know how I was going to go. And I think there were some things that surprised me. I got some things back super quick that I thought were going to be really tricky. And then some things like went backwards, you know, like I started to build and then they went backwards. Like my strength was really, really hard. I went through a lull where I started to get stronger. And then I hit a point a few months postpartum where like the sleep deprivation catches up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
It just like hit me like a ton of bricks at like maybe 4 or 5 months in, and it just like, and then I went backwards again, you know, because it caught up and I was trying to do other things. And so it's not linear. Like it doesn't just like go, you get better, like you get better, you're worse and better again. And it's all over the place. You know, based on my experience one time. So, and then I'm sure if I did it again, it's going to be totally different.
100%. That's what I hear, that no matter like whether it's your first or your fifth or whatever, it's different every time.
Yeah. And even the midwives were like, look, you had this like terrible labor. They're like, it probably won't be anything like that the second time. Your body knows what to do now. Hopefully. Like, yeah, hopefully, yeah, I'll be she'll like, baby will come out on the bathroom floor or something. It'll be like the total opposite.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time.
No worries. Thanks for
and I really, really appreciate it. That's really it.
Thank you. It's good. I like talking about all the mum stuff. It's kind of like nice to say it out loud and to feel normal and just like it's an okay thing, because often we get lost like just circling around in your head wondering if it's okay and normal, and to just talk about it or listen to it I think has a lot of value.
100%.